to the place where we learn about improv. Cause public speaking can take you so far. Improbly speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking. Improbly speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Improvly Speaking podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you. If you're joining us again, welcome back. So excited you're joining us again for another super fun episode. And I have an amazing guest for you today. I'm so excited to interview her. I just can't wait to jump right into it. And as you know, if you've been listening or for our new listeners on this podcast, I like to talk to people with a background in public speaking, improv, communication, performance, and creativity. And I'm excited to say that today's guest has found a way to combine all of those skills into one through her TikTok channel. It's amazing. It's so fun. And without further ado, let's jump right in and I'll introduce our guest, Madeleine Chalk. Madeleine is a digital content creator, comedian, writer, and actor based in Los Angeles. She is the CEO of These Lyrics But... She is a singer, and you can check her original music out on Spotify. It is so good. Please go listen. And finally, she's super funny, super talented, and I just can't wait to chat. Please welcome Madeleine Chalk.
Hi, Dana. That was what an introduction. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. I cannot wait.
I am so excited as well. And I just love your videos. Listen, a friend shared one of your These Lyrics, but it's a TED Talk videos with me a few months ago. She knows that I love public speaking and TED Talks, so she shared them with me. And I found them so funny. I was like, LOL, I'm laughing. Like, and I don't laugh out loud much. So like I was dying laughing at them.
Thank you so much, because to elicit actual laughter out loud is so hard these days. You can find something funny that you see on your phone. You're like, oh, that's pretty funny. But to make someone laugh out loud, that just, I mean, what a vote of confidence. Thank you.
And for our listeners, just to explain a little bit about what you do is you take song lyrics, but deliver them like TED Talks. So you have the clicker, which is actually your TV remote. And then you're pretending like you're talking, and then you turn to click to the next slide. Oh my God. Chef's kiss. It's so brilliant, so funny, so spot on. I just want to ask you, like, how did you come up with this idea?
I came up with this. I had been on TikTok already for just a few months, and just as a comedian in general. So every day I was just spitballing, trying new material, new ideas, and seeing what stuck. And it started the same way as so many of my videos did, which is just like a passive thought. And this time it was just remembering that the second verse of All Star by Smash Mouth sounds so much like a TED Talk. It sounds so much like some anecdote that some public speaker tells to like make them seem like it's just very self-righteous. Anyway, so I was like, cool, that'll just be like the video I do for the day. So I just like grabbed my Amazon Fire Stick and gave a little TED Talk, and it did well, but I didn't even ever think I would ever do it again. I had, up to that point, never repeated anything, really. I'd never really done a series of that nature. But people just started making requests, and it just took off as this self-sustaining ecosystem of requests and new ideas for me. And then I rinse, repeat. It's been such a trip for the past few months.
I love that it started with All Star by Smash Mouth. I love that.
Yeah, that's the original.
I love it. And it's evolved now. You started with the TED Talks, and then now you're doing true crime documentaries, the Dixie Chicks song. You did like a 6-part series on. You have the drunk friend, Bridgerton. It's so creative.
Thank you. That was my next step. So, a key thing for social media, particularly TikTok, is to double down on something that works. And I had really hit a gold mine with the lyrics thing because there were endless ideas, endless possibilities, endless requests. So I would never run out. And it would be familiar enough that you would recognize me when you see me. And so you'd watch the video if you liked the last one I posted. That's like textbook. And I was doing that for a while, but it started to just get a little stale for me creatively. I probably could have just kept doing it forever if that's all I was interested in doing. But I thought to myself, well, I'm a professional performer and comedian, and I like to be creative and create my own jokes. So I started doing these lyrics, but as different characters. And then I expanded, like you said, and started doing the true crime thing, which people loved. And most recently, even since we last talked, I have the new idea of movie trailers. So for all of October, every single day, I will be doing these lyrics, but it's a scary movie trailer. So I have tons of requests I still need to sift through, but I'm going to try and find 31 of the least expected songs to turn into scary movie trailers. So I actually have my first one done already, and I'm super excited for it.
Oh my God, I can't wait. That's so
Yay!
fun. That's so exciting.
Thank you. I know, I can't wait.
Well, and yeah, so that was one of my questions. Like, do you go into it like you have all these things in mind, or you kind of start and then you figure it out as you go along and you see what works, what doesn't, what hits?
I think a combination of both. It's important to be strategic and stick to a plan and stay intentional and consistent. That's all true. But it's also crucial to keep your finger on the pulse, keep your feelers out for new ideas, ways to level up, ways to expand. Because even though recreating something over and over and over again is a successful way to grow on TikTok and Instagram and all these recommendation based platforms right now, if you start to feel stale, I've noticed this personally, and your heart's not really in it when you're creating, it comes out and people can tell, and the engagement is directly related. I swear. Like, people will say, oh my God, I never expected that video of mine to go viral. But when the tables turn and you want a video to perform well engagement wise, but you're not really getting a lot of out of it creatively, it just never works. So I have been really vigilant about anytime I have a new idea that is like an opportunity to grow a little bit, I take it. And if it works, then I double down.
I love that. Yeah. And I love that you don't have to. What I take away from this is you don't have to have all the answers up front. You know, as
Right.
I'm starting this podcast out too, and I'm growing in my business, it can be a little scary when you're starting out to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do for this, and this. And that's okay. Like, you just have to have the idea and test it out. And one, you have to enjoy it. Like you're saying, like when you're starting to feel stale, people can tell. So, but when you're having fun with it, people can tell that too.
Yeah. It's really hard if you are really passionate about what you're doing and you put yourself out there doing it, it's impossible not to attract something out of that.
Well, and we've talked about this too. I love the TED Talks one because like you turn with the clicker, and we've talked like they don't actually turn usually in the TED Talks. I think they usually have the screens in front of them. They can just click, but it's the motion. Like, we feel it. Like, we get what you're doing. It's so funny. I just love it.
Thank you. Yeah, the remote is just a bit. And it's so funny because some people will say that's the best part of the TED Talks. Other people don't even know why I'm doing it. Like, it's not even clear to them that I'm changing a little slideshow. And then, of course, yes, there are people who are like, have you ever seen a TED Talk? They don't do that. I'm like, okay, thank you so much.
Get it right, of course.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yes.
If you have the Halloween trailers coming up, the scary movie trailers, I can't wait to see what you come up with for the holidays that are coming up soon.
Girl. You know it's going to be, well, I won't give away too much, but yes, the wheels are already turning.
Yay. I'm clapping in excitement. I'm so excited. So you mentioned that you are a comedian and a performer and a creator. Can you tell us about your journey there?
Yeah. Well, my performing career started nowhere close to comedy. I grew up a singer ever since my dad put me in a church choir in kindergarten. I've just always
Oh,
been a singer.
wow.
Yeah, so that and then I did that all through middle school. I was like the singer musical theater girl in high school, and then I went to college to be an opera singer. So that was
Really?
yes, so that was the direction I was headed in through my freshman year, and it was toward the end of my freshman year of college where I was starting to like realize that this wasn't really going to be for me. It was a super limiting major. It was like a conservatory training program, essentially. So, not a lot of time for me to have fun, do my thing, go abroad, all the like
Right,
really fun
right.
things that are about like all the fun things about college that I wanted to participate in. So I switched majors to the much more practical English literature. And
So practical. Yeah.
oh yeah, like well, I don't know, whatever. But what the advantage that allowed me was I did get to go abroad, and I got a job at it was kind of an entertainment press media company, which are all very vague words. But to be honest, I went to London to study abroad, and while I was there, I got an internship at a red carpet press media production company, I guess you'd call them, and caught the entertainment bug in a new way where I really actually saw myself pursuing a career just in entertainment in general for the first time, independently of singing. So I go to LA after I graduate, and I don't know, it's interesting. I went to LA to work in entertainment. I didn't take myself seriously as a performer professionally. I was going to be a corporate girly. So I got a job as an agent assistant. I was like, that's related enough. And I'll have time, maybe my free time to like sing, maybe try out for like a couple acting jobs, like whatever on the side. Um, Still really never considered myself funny. I never planned on becoming a comedian at all until one night I'm exhausted from this agency job. I'm just chilling at home by myself, and a friend of mine calls me, and she was dating this guy I couldn't stand at the time. And she was like, hey, so and so, my man, is going to go try stand up comedy, and I'm going to go support. Do you want to come? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. So I hang up, and I don't know, this wave of like competitive rage came over me. I was like, I could do that. If that bozo can do it, I can. So I went online. I must have just Googled stand up open mics near me or something, and found one. You had to pay $5 to do it. It was in a strip mall in the valley next to a 7-Eleven. And I just kind of walked in.
Yes.
Yes, didn't know a single person, made up a set on the spot, and like survived. And I don't know, ever since then, I just started taking comedy seriously and couldn't hack it at the agency job. That ended very quickly.
Yeah, that sounds
And
intense. Agent's
it
assistant
and
encompasses a lot of things in that
it was a
description.
lot. Yes.
Yes.
People who can handle those jobs, I mean, the backbone you got to have. And I did not, let me tell you. But so I traded that suffering in for the suffering of working a day job while trying to be a performer. And so that's how I kind of dove into comedy from a long background of performing, but that had nothing to do with comedy. And it's so many things have gotten me from that point to here. It's like almost two whole separate journeys. But the as soon as I started really telling myself I was a comedian, I hit the ground running. I wrote, created, and produced this live sketch show that I put on. I joined the sketch comedy group. I was getting little groups together to film things. I was very, very active. And then the pandemic hit. And
Womp, womp,
as
womp.
womp womp, here we are, the pandy. So but it's funny because I wish I could say that the second I heard about TikTok and the second I had all this time on my hands during the pandemic that I took advantage of it, but I didn't. I sulked. I was so depressed that the pandemic had just ruined all my plans for more live shows and more performing. And what am I going to do? And my mom kept telling me, you should get on social media. You should get on TikTok. I see all these other people doing
Your
it. And I
mom
don't know.
encouraged you to.
Oh, yes. And she'll be
I
glad
love
that I'm
it.
saying this publicly because, yeah, she will never let me forget it because I ignored her for like a year. She was like, why don't you? And I just, who knows who I thought I was? Like, oh, I'm too good for, I don't know. But I didn't really bother with TikTok until December. So, like, it's almost October. Is that 8 months ago?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So that was a long time. That was a long sulking period before I got
Well,
up and did something
understandably
about it.
so. Like, I think
Well,
we all
that's very
sulked.
nice of you.
Yes. Understandably so. Like, we all went through a worldwide trauma here. So,
Oh,
yeah, we'll
didn't
cut you
we
some
all?
slack for sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. And, comedy is tragedy plus timing. So that was all it
True.
took. Yes. So once I started getting on TikTok, kind of just for fun, I stopped worrying. I stopped putting the pressure on myself to like become instantly famous out of it, which was like kind of what my mom wanted. And I was like, let's just have fun. I, inadvertently took the advice I give now, which is just do it because you enjoy it. That is priority number one. And the second you purely just start doing it because you enjoy it, the success will follow. Don't be hacky. Don't obsess over success. Anyway, to make a long story short, a video of mine accidentally went mega viral over the holidays. And that was truly all of the confidence that I needed to just start taking it seriously. And instantly started researching TikTok strategy and started basically making and posting 3 videos a day of just whatever popped into my brain and dealing with the emotional roller coaster of highs and lows, flops and slays, as the kids say, and growing a community and deciding what brand you want to have on social media. So it's been its own huge creative, like, just I'm trying to think of like the way I feel about it because it's such an abundance. It's like my own creative buffet. Social
Oh, I
media.
love that term. Creative abundance, creative buffet. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And it's still cool. Like I still feel like even having laid so much groundwork and tried so much, I still feel like I haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg. It's such a wealth of opportunities and ideas. I feel so lucky to be in this generation.
Oh, that's true. I don't think about that. Because I always call myself an older millennial, or some people say geriatric millennial, which I do not use that term.
Yeah.
But I am an
bit
older
harsh.
millennial. Like, social media it's hard for me. It's hard for me to get into. But you are right though with this. It is cool to be a part of this generation in that there's so many ways to put yourself out there, to be creative, and you don't just have to do a 9-to-5 job in order to sustain yourself and be creative.
Yeah.
So that is cool.
Yeah. Well, growing up, for example, I was just strictly a performer. I was a strictly creative person, was not a very motivated student, honestly. But I grew up in an area, a suburb of DC. So tons of high achievers. That is, as corporate as it gets. It's 9-to-5 or bust. So the atmosphere I grew up in was sort of like really the only way to have any kind of success is if you have a 9-to-5 job. And, I had to unlearn the feeling of not wanting to be caught dead working a day job and telling people I'm a, aspiring or struggling creative. There was really a time in my life where I was too vain to ever consider that. And it's just so exciting to see that this new generation of people don't feel that way, or at least fewer, I would say, do.
Yes,
Because
yes.
whereas I looked around and only saw people within my bubble who were all homogenous, all doing the same thing, the bubble is now so much bigger, for better or for worse. But if you have a phone, you can just hop on, TikTok and see someone who lives in Alaska and works on a fishing boat, and you can decide, oh, that's valid, and I want to do that maybe. Like, it's just, what is the word? Oh, it's a privilege. It's such a privilege.
It is. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And Oh, this is a side job for me, like a little side hustle, although I don't like the term side hustle because that, of course,
Yeah.
indicates that you're like not resting and stuff. But this is a side job for me, and it is a chance for me to be creative and explore my creative side. And just listening to you and your creative background, I mean, growing up, I never considered myself creative. I did not do any of the quote unquote art, painting, drawing, singing, acting. Like I was strictly sports. And so for me, like finding
Nice.
this new creative outlet, I would say three to 5 years ago ish with public speaking and then improv. I mean, it's been eye opening, door opening. It's been amazing to have this creative outlet and realize that being creative is not just with the quote unquote arts. Being creative is doing what you love to do. And that's been huge for me.
That's great. Wow, I'm terrible at almost every sport. So yes, we have very different backgrounds. So maybe I need to be like you and widen my horizons and try some more sports. Um,
But
because
yeah.
I'm very afraid. I shrink away at any opportunity, any pickup game of any kind.
But you were really competitive though. Like I love that competitive spirit of like, this guy's doing stand up. If this guy's doing stand up, I can absolutely do stand up. And what I love too about your story is you didn't take many classes. Like I'm such a class person in that like, oh, I want to do something, I need to take a class to do it. Oh, I want to try this, I got to take a class. I want to do stand up, and on my list is like take a class. Like so I love that you were like, I don't need to do a class. Like, I'm just going to get up there and do it. And I'm going to crush better than this stupid guy is.
Well, I think all that says is just like you pointed out, that's the process that would make you feel better and would make you enjoy the whole thing more. I don't know
Right,
what it
right.
is for me. And this is totally to a fault. For me, there are plenty of things that you absolutely should take a class before doing, but even I would like try to skip those. And so because I think I get nervous that if there are too many stepping stones that, in in between me and just the final result, that I may lose momentum and stop. And so, in the very, very low stakes case of just trying my hand at stand up for a bunch of strangers one random night, I am comfortable just skipping over those little stones and going to Burbank, parking next to 7-Eleven and just giving it my best shot. But the thing about classes, and this is something I'm working on, it's another way I'm trying to be actually more like you, is there are people who have plenty of information and experience to offer. So even if I can do a stand up set and survive it and do as good a job as maybe someone who's taken a class, it doesn't mean I'm absolved of taking a class ever. Like I can, and I probably should. Stand up's kind of just like my fun little thrill seeking thing. So I may keep that sacred because once people started encouraging me to develop my 5 minutes, as it were, kind of like your rehearsed set,
Right,
and
right.
pedal it around town, I was like, I don't know if I want this to become another ambition of mine, and another thing that I'm, seeking income or validation from. Like, it really does feel like skydiving. It's a huge adrenaline rush, so I'm just gonna let it be that because I can't skydive as easily.
I get that. Yeah, and that's such a good point too with classes and like momentum, and if you're putting so many stepping stones in your way, then you lose momentum in your process of trying to be more creative. So I think it's a balance like you said, and just
Totally.
getting that adrenaline rush. I did my first sketch show a few months ago, and it was like the ultimate high. Just like finishing that show,
Yeah.
was like, and then you keep chasing that high, right? Of like I want to do it again,
Oh, it's
and it was a
addictive.
class. It was a sketch class that had a show at the end, so I didn't stray too far from my usual model, but um,
Hey,
it was just so enjoyable, and yeah, I think just getting into the creative spirit more. I mean, it's addicting, I have to say.
it is. Well, that's another thing too. And I mean, it just goes back to what we're saying. There are different, you enjoy something the most when you feel confident about it. I think we can all agree. And whereas taking a class and who knows, what this says about me, but sometimes taking a class or hearing from an expert or just the thought of it shakes my confidence. I don't know why. I would rather, fire and then aim. Whereas taking a class, like just for example, for you, it sounds like, not to put words in your mouth, but taking a class that ended with a show resulted in you being much more confident for that show than if you just did the show with zero,
Oh,
zero
yes,
meetings
for
beforehand.
sure.
Right. Yeah. So it's all about that. And that's the huge advantage, again, of social media is that if your confidence takes a hit one way or another, you can easily test things to get your confidence back up. I mean, it's still a muscle you have to flex. There are days when my confidence gets shaken and it's hard for me to press record, but remembering that, especially with the way social media is set up now, there's just this constant influx. There's just new information every second. So you can just experiment, throw shit at the wall, try things, like enjoy the flops and enjoy the slays. And it's not, whereas like you can't ever redo a live sketch show, really. I mean, not that one performance, but you get to, on TikTok or wherever, whatever platform you like, keep recreating videos and honing in on your craft. It's like this public rehearsal.
Something I've kind of learned recently or just been kind of going with is this asking for permission almost, or like not having to ask for permission. And like you said, when you take classes, you're taking it from an expert, someone who is 2 levels or more or 10 or plus ahead of you. And so then you start to be like, oh, they're so experienced. I've got to wait till I'm that experienced to do the thing I want to do. Therefore, I need permission to do this thing. And certainly I think learning and developing your craft is so important, of course, but you don't have to ask for permission to do something. If you have this passion, this idea, put it out there, like do it,
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do with this. Like, I don't have all the answers to improv and public speaking and creativity, but I want to talk to people who do. And anyway, so I just appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, well, it's really amazing. You not only you can train yourself out of psychologically needing permission, of course, that's a great thing, but also, and what I'll say is, I think we all should try to, because technologically, you really don't need permission. It's this amazing thing where it was only a few decades ago that if I wanted to do what I do, so if I wanted to be a comedian, a performer, an actor, I would need someone to hire me to get me on a stage or on a set to be in their thing. So there are all these physical limitations, all of these, whatever, monetary, social limitations, you name it. Now, if you have a phone, you can be all those things. It's crazy. Not only be all those things, but make a living doing it. So I'm so glad that I gave myself permission eventually, because eventually, after I was done sulking and just took,
after
and
mom
took
encouraged
advantage.
you.
Right. Yes. Shout out to my mom.
Shout out to mom.
Yeah. Shout out to all moms, but Indra, I owe her big. So yeah, again, such a privilege to be in this generation, because all you need is a phone it sounds so cheesy, but you can really make your dreams come true if you want.
I love that. You're inspiring me to do more on social media too. So,
well, that's not everybody's dream. So also, because that's the thing too, is you also get a lot of pressure of people telling you have to get on social media. But if you don't enjoy it, you can always hire someone to do it, for you. It's a good thing to have, but if it's not your passion, don't force it.
That's true. But it is very helpful and beneficial to your business. So if you can find an outlet of social media that you enjoy, like I don't do Twitter. I just don't. I don't have one. I don't do it. I'm not going to post on it, but I can post on Instagram. Like I can find the channels, the mediums that work for me, I think.
Yeah. It's all about whatever works. The reason there are so many experts on social media and starting businesses and all these things is because there are a million different right ways to do it. So yeah, I mean, and I know we mentioned chatting about social media, and I still am very down to do that because I've just developed this very specific
Yes,
literacy. So I'm happy to help you out because it's
of course.
well, yeah, it's um once you crack the nut, even just like, your first video that does well, it really does. That's another thing that gets addictive. That's something that has gotten addictive for me, for sure.
I love this. And we're going to take a quick break, the quickest
Okay,
of
cool.
breaks. And I want to come back and talk about likes and how
Okay.
did you phrase it? The slays and the flops,
The
the slays and
flops
the
and the
flops.
slays.
Yeah, I want to get into all of that. So we will do that when we get back. And we're back with the Improvly Speaking podcast, and we're talking to Madeleine Chalk today, having so much fun talking about social media. And speaking of social media, I want to get into the flops and the slays, which is a new term I'm just hearing today, but just talking about the likes and going viral. Madeleine, I know with being on social media, it is very vulnerable. And, some videos, like you said, do well and some don't. So, what keeps you going and posting, maybe with a flop, shall we say?
Half answer this question and half explain the flops and the slays thing.
Yes,
It's
please.
probably pretty intuitive. A flop is, a failure. So maybe a video that doesn't get as many views as you'd like. Whereas a slay is a success. So a video that, ideally goes viral or just does really well in some other way. So there was a TikTok audio going around for a while of someone saying, it's just a flop, not a flop era. And sometimes after the biggest flop comes the greatest slay or something like that.
I
And
love it. I love it.
it's just a bunch of, Gen Z shtick crammed into one TikTok audio. And but be that as it may, I tell myself that every single day. It has become my live, laugh, love because it's very hard not to take it personally when a video doesn't perform well, especially if you put
Right.
a lot of effort into it and you're excited about it and you expected different results. So it's very easy in that moment to want to give up, or, blame the algorithm or your audience or whatever. Or, well, or you sometimes you can do that and then decide to get up and try again anyway. But basically, the only way you can slay is if you try again. And so the advantage of TikTok is that posting is such low stakes. The videos technically are on there permanently. The way TikTok is set up, even if you do flop, it's not as public as you think, and it's not permanent. It's not a flop era. It doesn't define you as a creative person. It doesn't define the quality of your work as a whole. And it's a learning opportunity. That's really all it is. So when I flop, I try not to take it personally, and I try not to let it take too much of the wind out of my sails, and just remember that I love doing this, whether it's successful or not, and proceed accordingly. And then there's always a sleigh around the corner.
I love that. And I mean, as you mentioned, it can be really hard to not tie our validation and our sense of self-worth to these numbers, these metrics they're easy to get. I mean, you can get so many metrics from your posts. So, I mean, I know you're saying like you're giving advice on how to do it, but anything else to add to that, like just not tying your self-worth to it?
It's something I'm still working on every day because,
I bet, I'm sure.
yeah, well, especially now that it's my job, it's my career right now.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing as being in a movie that gets a few bad reviews, in the mix with the good ones. That's all just so subjective. Even, Rotten Tomatoes ratings, people take those with a grain of salt. Whereas the social media, the metrics are all there. You get smacked in the face with them. And it's sort of like the algorithm has done the quality control for you. I think that's the attitude a lot of consumers have when they're on social media of like, well, you'll see something, you'll notice that it has 2 million likes. So you'll stick around and be like, oh, I wonder what's so great about this video that it got 2 million likes. Whereas it's much harder to convince someone when they're watching a video that it's going to be good if it doesn't have a, outstanding metric like that. So obviously I wake up every day wanting to achieve those, flagship metrics. And most days I don't. And some days, I'll lose followers. Recently, actually, just because I posted something that wasn't my usual content on Instagram, I lost 300 followers over the course of a few days.
Whoa.
And
Okay.
yeah, it was random and totally unprecedented. And it was hard for me not to walk around and feel like I was, 300 points less valuable. It hurt, it
Right.
stung. And it's, your first instinct is to look at yourself and be like, what am I doing wrong? And, can I ever come back from this? I mean, that's so dramatic.
It's not a flop era. It's not a flop era.
Not a flop era. A sleigh is right there on the corner. So yeah, I mean, what I can say now, a few weeks out of that big dip and still in the process of getting it back, but getting it back slowly but surely, is just in that 2 week span, I've enjoyed doing the work of getting the metric back up. But I was going to keep doing it, and I will keep doing it even if the metric doesn't change. And that is the whole point. That's the whole point. You should honestly do anything. But like, again, if I became so desperate to get more followers, or just go viral, if the metrics were the only thing on the forefront of my mind while I was creating, it not only wouldn't be my best work, but I wouldn't enjoy it as much. And I wouldn't really be a creative anymore. I'd be a metrics getter. It's just,
Right.
it's an easy trap to fall into. And it's an easy way to keep your self-worth rooted in those numbers. So that's it's an ongoing effort. I still have my moments for sure, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Well, and that brings up the idea of, you mentioned like a sleigh is a success, right? So, I mean, as a digital content creator, you are having to define what is successful to you. Is it the likes and the shares, or is it you enjoying it? But also, making some money off or making a living off of it. So, what I'm hearing is it's an ongoing struggle, an ongoing cycle that you just have to keep working on and reminding yourself what really is successful.
Absolutely. When the real flop era was in my sulking period that I was talking about, where I was in this vicious cycle every day of not being brave enough to put myself out there, not believing in myself enough to be creative publicly, and then being hard on myself when I felt underaccomplished and not creatively fulfilled. So it was just a spiral, and it was miserable. And I remember thinking, actually, it's actually really funny, and this is totally true. I was listening to a podcast with an influencer guest. This was now about like a year and a half ago, but prime sulking period. I was listening to a podcast with an influencer, and she was talking about how at one point she lost 1,000 or 2 followers, and how she was upset, but came back from it, whatever. She had like millions. So it was but a dent. But I remember sitting there thinking like, wow, I can't imagine being upset about losing a few thousand followers if I had thousands and thousands. Because there I was, no social media following at all, no social media presence at all, no gumption, no mojo.
Oh, I love that word, gumption.
Gumption. And that was really all I wanted. Yes. So now it's the first thing I remember during my flop days, of which I still have plenty, and they're still like all consuming and they can still really get me down. But it's very easy for me to feel better when I just think back to like sad, mopey Mad and how much she wanted to be in my shoes now. So like even the greatest flop in this period, I'm still grateful for it, because nothing can be as bad as just not doing anything at all.
Oh, sad, mopey Mad. I'm so
I'm sad and mopey. Woo! You wouldn't believe.
I'm so glad that, but that's so true, right? Like where you've started and like what you've been able to do just in not even a year. Like that is success right there. Like that's huge.
Oh,
And often we don't take a step back and go, hey, look what I just did. Like that's awesome. I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to stop here, but like this is awesome.
yes, like gotta stay hungry. That's crucial. But
Right.
yes, it's totally not only allowed, but I think it's important. I think it's crucial to do exactly that because again, it's I mean, people preach gratitude a lot, but that's really what gratitude is because there's a balance between staying hungry and so then if you're ambitious, you're kind of quote never satisfied. There's a balance between that and never becoming complacent and never losing momentum, but also, you know, practicing gratitude, being grateful for how far you've come. Don't always just train yourself into thinking that you're not enough, because that is a huge strain on your mental health. So
Absolutely.
you have to strike a balance there.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I'm so enamored by your confidence and your ability to be silly, put yourself out there with your videos. I- And what you're doing is hard. Like I mean, I don't know. Feel free to share what you want, but like how many edits and takes do you have to do with like a normal video?
Ooh,
I know I'm putting you on the spot and you could
no,
share what you
it's a
want here.
great question because
I
it
don't want you to
totally
give away your
depends.
process.
No, 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 it's okay. My process, first of all, I will totally say this. My process is different every video, and the results are different. So, for example, my most viral These Lyrics But video is one that I shot in like 10 minutes. I had 10 minutes before I had to like haul ass somewhere. I was running super late, but I needed to shoot a video for that day. And that was my Milkshake, that song. I did that as a TED
Oh,
Talk.
nice.
And I think that has like 10 million views. And I just did it because I was like, ooh, how can I use this 10 minutes? Oh, this will be funny. So it was still pure enjoyment, but I was just like, let's just get it out. So that was no edits. That was one take. And I went
Wow.
about my
Yeah.
day with no expectations. Versus, and this has happened for sure, spending hours. That's not an exaggeration. I've definitely spent like, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours on a really elaborate video, adding text and timing the clips perfectly and all that,
Mhm.
only to get, a severely below average result
Right.
views wise. And and then everything in between, right? So like I've also then put a lot of effort into videos that have done well. And so, it just always depends. But I think it's easy so I'm not like you. I'm not running a business. I don't, let's see. I'm also not like a hot girl or an expert at anything, at least not like I don't claim to be. My whole thing is just entertainment. It's just silliness. It's just funniness, which
Yeah.
I just
Which
naturally want to do.
check it is.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I shouldn't just go around saying that. That's for the audience to decide. Hang
Oh,
on, let me just.
no, I mean I think you're doing what you say you're doing. Absolutely.
So it's less scary because entertaining people and making people laugh is really a coping mechanism that I've grown up having. It's like I said, I never considered myself a comedian, but I grew up. I was not a very cute child, and I was attention starved. So naturally, I became an entertainer. It was my only shot. So it's natural for me in front of the camera to like to be an entertainer and be silly. It's a self-soothing method, if anything. Whereas if I had to take myself really, really seriously on camera, if I had to make content that I don't necessarily think would like bring someone joy, uh, but would have some other goal, like teach them something. Like I don't. That's where I get really freaked out, and that's where I really lose my confidence. I hope to like, get out of that at some point. But yeah, no. And and being an entertainer is my medicine. So
Yeah,
it's yeah.
I love that. And well, that's what you've been doing your whole life. I mean, you've been in the kids choir since you were in kindergarten. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
singing, dancing, acting. I mean, that's incredible. And I was not a cute kid
Oh,
either, I will add. But I was an
you were
only child.
athletic though.
I was an only
Oh.
child. I did not like any attention, which I guess is opposite of most only children, but I was like, do not put the spotlight on me. Like, do not look at me, basically.
Interesting. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Yeah. Well, I guess, it's a mixed bag, only children, but yeah, most only children I know, they love the spotlight.
Right. I love it
Gotcha.
now as I'm older, but
Look at
when I
you
was younger,
now.
ooh, right? We've come a long
Right.
way, both of us, it sounds like.
Totally. Well, I was also the oldest child, the oldest daughter, and so I was. You can ask my poor sweet little sister, like super bossy. So not only did I want to be, this entertainer, this creative, but I was constantly roping her into like productions in our basement and teaching her dance routines that I'd made up. And she was such a good little sport. I mean, she really did that with a smile on her face for like years. Um, so yeah, I mean, again, that's just I guess where my confidence comes from. But I mean, any sport, forget about it. Like, so we each have our own things. Own
Yeah,
strengths.
I love it. Well, and so I love that the term flop era, and especially when you're first starting out in something, you might be in a flop era for a while. And so I call it getting through the cringe, like because it's new, you might not do it as well. Eh, I have an episode about this, like getting through the cringe. And I guess what I'm hearing from you, and feel free to add to this, like, you just have to start. Like, you got to get through that cringe. You got to get through that flop era. A sleigh is on the other side. You get to decide what your sleigh is, what your success metric is. And you just got to, like, keep going and it'll eventually feel more comfortable. Like, you're in your jam now. Like, you're like, I'm entertaining people. I'm doing what I love. Like, I love all of this. So, what I'm hearing is, just get through these cringy parts of like all of it's kind of weird feeling and just keep going and you'll get to the other side.
You totally will. I think, yeah, the cringe aspect of it is a very common mental obstacle for a lot of people. But the only way you can guarantee that you'll never make someone cringe is if you never make anything at all. So, what a sad life, because that's also a way to guarantee that you never slay. So, you know, you can't win if you don't play. So, um, and also it's funny too, like I'm sure, in fact, I hope that people have seen my content and cringed and been like, I could do a better job than that. And I hope they have, because that's just textbook inspiration. That's all inspiration is. So, and that is effectively how I started doing, comedy. It's how you get the confidence to do anything. It's not necessarily cringing, like actively being like, ugh, this is bad. But often cringing at something and then realizing that you could do just as good a job at it or a better one. It's just like the stand up thing. And I got that phone call. I was like, I can do that. So, cringing is a good thing. It's a necessary part of the ecosystem. And so, like, yeah, contribute to the cringeworthy content in the beginning. And it's also it'll be such a good beat in your success story to look back on your flops, on your failures. I still do it now, where I'll look back at these old videos that I made back when I was a young little social media spring chicken, just doing whatever. And, you know, they only add value to what I do now. That's all your past failures will ever do. So, yeah, it's hard to have that mentality when like you're pressing record for the first time. Obviously, you're just like, I hope I survive this and, don't get eaten alive. But yeah, in retrospect, cringe is just so not even something to be afraid of. It just comes with the territory.
I love that phrase, contribute to the cringeworthy content. Get in there.
Get in
You can't
there. We
win
all
if you
have
don't
to do it.
play.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. Well, and so I want to ask you, Madeleine, this podcast is called Improvly Speaking. So do you use improv in any of your stand-up or videos you create?
Most of my stand up is improv, which is the not
Really?
usually. Yes. In fact, I've never rehearsed a set because I am dumb and I never took a class. And the stand up comedians that I saw growing up and up until that point when I first gave it my shot, they all sounded like they were making it up as they go along, which I now know is the point. But it's super rehearsed, it's super planned. So I just thought all stand-up comedians were great improvisers. So,
Which some
but
are, but some
yes,
practice it to a point that they just know it so well
yeah,
they can
I
improvise
don't
with it too.
exactly like I don't think the Netflix specials that I've watched are
Right.
100% improv. There's just no way. But yeah, so I've, because I'm set in my ways, as we mentioned earlier, I will probably just keep doing that. Because it's also exciting. It adds to the, excuse me, it also adds to the, adrenaline rush aspect of it. And then honestly, I think my daily life is improv because I my schedule is different every day. I This is probably not something to brag about, but like I don't have a set morning, afternoon, or evening routine. I'm just kind of operating on vibes. Whenever I'm
I love
speaking to
it.
someone, yeah, like talking to you right now, it's all improvisation. I'm a big fan of improvisation, and I probably use it more than I use preparation.
Well, that's I'm so glad hearing you say that because in public speaking we talk about practice, practice, practice,
Yeah,
not to a sense where you like have it memorized word for word and you're just like operating like a robot, but I actually don't practice a lot in my speeches. I want to practice more, but I do like improv and I actually like just going, especially if it's a low stakes situation. I will just go in and test it out and then learn from it. And when I get up and do the higher stakes situation, I have had already practiced.
yeah. Like what
But
better
that's
practice than
comforting.
actually doing it? Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
that's comforting to hear.
For me, coming from a background that was very rigorous and regimented and very practice heavy, which was classical
Yes.
singing. I mean, you cannot get away with little to no practice. I guess you
No.
can. In fact, I know some. I well, yeah, no, you can't. And I definitely didn't. When I did not practice, it showed. And um, this even has to do with just my overall lack of discipline. But comedy, you can get away with less, practicing, and you kind of should. Like you, let me think about this. Like because it actually goes back to the flop and slay thing with comedy and entertainment, and I think arguably even with speaking, sometimes you have to try and fail, do trial and error in a higher stakes situation, I think. And for it to really have an impact on your growth. Maybe that's maybe getting risky if I'm getting into the public speaking territory, because obviously you want every speaking engagement to like be the best it can be. So just with comedy, at least I'll say, especially on social media, it's just like you got to make something. Sometimes that's all it is. So it's like just make something, and it might probably will fail. But like that's okay. You can just get better from that. Instead of taking a bunch of takes, like we've said, like you're practicing writing out your script and all that, only to take one take that could still have the exact same result.
That's so true. Yeah, and I like to test out my content, like my public speaking content in my Toastmasters club and in other
Yeah,
areas. And for a while in my early start when I was just conquering my fear of public speaking, speaking in front of the Toastmasters group was high stakes for me. Like that was
exactly.
considered high stakes. But now I consider it as a lower stakes situation where I am practicing my content. So it's just funny how things kind of flip and work out. but I'm actually comforted by like, okay, like yes, practice, but also like allow yourself to trust your skills and
Yeah.
practice your content in the right situations. And you know what situations are best for improvising and which situations are better for when you need to practice.
Yes. It's how I personally fight imposter syndrome. It goes back to, again, we have different approaches to it. You soothe your imposter syndrome by taking a class.
Right.
And I should do more of that. I just kind of like blindly ignore my imposter syndrome and just like shoot my shot anyway. And I think like because all imposter syndrome really is fear of failure. And that never goes away, no matter how much experience you have. And the possibility of failure never goes away, no matter how practiced you are. And no matter how much of an expert you consider yourself or an imposter you don't consider yourself. So, yeah, it's just, but again, it's like we are so lucky that we now live in a generation and a time where technologically you really have your pick as to like how you want to practice and get better at whatever you love. So I'm not on stage as often as I used to be. And now I'm on my phone all the time. But like, whereas you are in improv classes and doing sketch shows and you love and starting a business. So, there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong way, I personally think, to do what you love. It's what you love. So that's all that matters.
Well, and you're on stage. Your phone is your stage.
Mm.
Like, I caught you in
Yes.
mid sip. Yes.
Yes, you're so right. The ones and the zeros are my stage, the digital world.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean it's easier than renting out a stage on Santa Monica Boulevard and charging admission.
So
Yeah.
true.
Less time consuming too. But yeah, it's so like we've, touched a lot about how social media is scary, and it is. Like I remember being afraid of social media like it was yesterday, and the fear was all consuming, and it kept me from taking action for a really long time, no matter how much my mom would press me. um but now, like, that I'm deep in it, I not a day goes by that I don't appreciate how lucky we are to have it as a tool. Because if we didn't and we never got it, I might still be sulking, from the pandemic thing. So yeah, that's like something I constantly have to remind myself to be grateful for.
I love that. And I mean, this kind of leads into my last question for you. And I think we've kind of touched on
Already?
it, but oh, I know. Oh, well, hey, look, take all the time to answer this last question. You're on stage. The stage is yours here.
All right.
Um, I mean, we've already kind of touched on it, but any other tips for those like me, growing up who think that they have no creative bone in their body, they're just not creative in the arts or whatever? Any tips for those people or for people who might be stuck creatively and need some help to find their creative passion or outlet?
Well, if you're not ready to take action yet, if you're not ready to produce, if you're not ready to hit record, just start watching and enjoying, and just do that for its own sake for a while. Don't passively scroll, and don't, spend hours and hours on your phone at a time, but just, put your feelers out for content that resonates with you, whether it's, in my case, it would be I'd be looking out for content that I find really funny, that I want to be as good at, or as good as. But it could be anything. I mean, if you love to cook, cooking TikTok is out there. I mean, there's something for
Oh,
everybody. So
yeah.
tons. Or even just like, I mean, I've seen everything: tarot card readers, motivational speakers, people who can help you with your credit score, like public speaking experts like you. Like, if you don't know what you want to do, if you're not even sure you want to do it at all, then, before you ever have to make anything, just consume things. And you'll be naturally inspired. There's so much out there. There's something for everybody. The way that all these algorithms work now is that they cater directly to you as a consumer. They figure out what you like. And, a lot of people get really up in arms about that. And, oh my gosh, like all this information, but like, it's good. It's useful. I basically trained TikTok to coach me in comedy and became a TikTok comedian. Starting out is the fun part. And you can do both at the same time. So if you feel comfortable just trying whatever, but you're not sure if you want to commit to it, you never have to. It's all temporary. I'm not doing the same thing I was doing a week ago, let alone a few months ago. So the growth will happen. It all just will naturally happen, which doesn't sound helpful. And I won't take the inch that you gave me and go a mile of like talking your ear off about this, but I want to articulate this well, because like I just can so relate to the person you're describing, of really feeling creatively paralyzed, emotionally paralyzed, and not even being able to fathom overcoming that. I've genuinely been there. It really wasn't that long ago. And remembering that it was fun and that the app was for my entertainment just as much as I wanted to be other people's entertainment, and just letting it be my entertainment for a while, enjoying it, and then feeling a little bit more equipped, a little bit more comfortable to kind of join the ranks, but just do it for fun instead of like, I have to go viral or I'm a failure, because that is a damaging attitude to go in with.
Yeah. No, beautiful.
Yeah.
That was this. You handled that question like a champ, and you owned your stage there for sure.
Thanks.
It means that really does mean a lot. Just, getting started is always half the battle, and just like giving yourself permission to start, whether it is taking a class or saying, I can do this better than someone. I'm going to get up and use this platform.
I made myself sound so like cutthroat.
No, I love it. Like, I don't have that mindset at all. And I love when other people do. Like, I'm fascinated by it. That's the level of confidence like I want to get to, for sure. I love it.
It doesn't have to
do
come
not
from
apologize.
Well, thank you. But yeah, I mean, if competition doesn't motivate you, your inspiration does not have to come from a place of
Right.
competition at all. I think, when I got started on TikTok, that was not what was going on at all. I was just like, hee hee, like this is my fun little hobby. Like, so, yeah, hee hee. So there are valid sources of inspiration. It doesn't just have to be competing with a guy that you think you can do better than. Oh, that's not bad.
But hey, it worked out. Look at you now. It worked out. Still doing stand up, still crushing it on stage. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
good.
Yeah, right. I should say that too. I wish him the best. But yeah, things do work out as long as you want them to. Like, that's another thing too, is like that I remember too, because like I'm happy with where I am right now and where I'm headed. But it is certainly an adjustment to what I expected for myself just a few years ago. So, basically it's like, but I'm okay with that, because I mean, the example I mean is, I guess a few years ago, I probably envisioned myself, maybe touring or being in like more paid performing roles. I didn't expect to be on social media full time at all. So it's not specifically exactly what I was shooting for a couple years ago. But if I told myself a couple years ago that I'd be doing this, like, she'd be thrilled. So it's like recognizing that. So those people who are maybe feeling like they're cracking under the pressure that they're putting on themselves, is things will work out, because as you work toward them and as you work really hard and fight your fears and learn from the flaps and enjoy the slays, um, you will also adjust your expectations. You will also adjust your goals and your dreams, and they'll ebb and flow as you grow creatively. So, like, it sounds like reductive and overly optimistic, but I really do believe that like things really will work out if you really want them to, and if you just start. That's like really, I really do believe that.
Oh my gosh. Applause. Just saluting you. Getting you mid sip again. Yes. That was beautiful though. Honestly, I really
Oh,
needed to hear that today. I hope that helped our listeners too. I've been putting on a lot of pressure on myself with the podcast and stuff, and it is just a side business, a side hustle, but I want it to do well and be well, and yeah, I needed to hear that. Just enjoy it as you go,
oh
and
yeah.
stop putting all the pressure on yourself.
Yeah, I'm definitely not worried about you. Like you, I mean, it's really just you're in the thick of it, and it's so funny. I look forward to talking to you a few months, a few years from now about this conversation, because I know we'll laugh about it. We'll both have come so far, and that is such a fun thing to think about. You'll be telling me how, oh my gosh, I remember when this was just a side hustle and I was getting my podcast off the ground. Yeah, that's the fun. It's an exciting thing to think about. It's like the other side of the coin, the pressure coin. So
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
excited for
you
you.
heard it here first, folks. We will be having part 2 of this episode in about 2 years. We'll just schedule it for 2 years. It might be sooner, it might be later, but just in about 2 years,
Perfect.
there's part 2 of this for sure.
Love it.
Let's just
Let's
call
get it
it
off the books.
now.
Perfect. I can't wait.
I love it. Oh my God. Madeline, this has been, and listen, you are no longer mopey, sad, mad, or sad, mopey, mad. You are happy, glad, mad. I mean, inspiring us all. I've enjoyed this
Oh.
so much. And, where if our listeners aren't following you yet, they must, absolutely must. And where can they find out more about you?
Yes, what's up, everybody? You can follow me on TikTok at MadChalk, or on Instagram, or both. Instagram, it's mad.chalk. I'm starting getting into YouTube, but we'll see. But you'll
Ooh,
find out about that
nice.
on those. Yeah, well, that's a whole other beast. That I
That
look forward to
is.
talking about in 2 years. Well, yeah, we'll see
Yeah.
how that's gone. But people who are curious about that, you can find out about my journey with that on TikTok and Instagram. So just hit me with those follows there, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. And I will put your Linktree link in the show notes, but it's Linktree/MadChalk as well, where you can see all your cool videos and songs. Any
Woo.
comedy shows coming up to plug? Or are you just like on a whim doing stand-up night?
Nothing that far out on the horizon. Talk about improv. But yeah, I'll let you know, and yeah, I'll keep the good people updated on social media about that for sure. So yeah, no, the
Yeah,
upcoming things for me are all on your screen, so you can tune in whenever you want.
I love it. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do with the Halloween, the scary movie trailer song lyrics.
Yeah, I should mention. Yeah, totally. That'll start October 1st, so you can be a part of that series starting then in just a few days.
Oh my God. I'm so excited. And then the holidays. Oh, I love the holiday time and like holiday songs and stuff. So I can't wait to see what you do there too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it'll be good.
I picture you like dressing up like Santa Claus or an elf or
On it.
something. I'm
I will pull out all the stops for the holidays. Got to.
Oh my God. Fantastic. Well, we'll wrap up here. Madeline, thank you so much for being on. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I can't wait for part 2 in 2 years.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. And yes, 2 years from now can't come soon enough. Can't
Yes.
wait.
And to wrap this up for our listeners today, you heard Madeleine's story about how she took an idea and just put it out there. Now I want to ask you, what would you like to put out there, but you've been afraid to do so? How can you get through the cringe or the quote unquote flop era and allow yourself to be vulnerable and share your idea with the world? And I want to hear from you. If anything resonated with you today, anything that you're feeling called to do so, please reach out to me at dana@improvislyspeaking.com. That's DAYNA at improvislyspeaking.com. Got that weird little Y in there. It always helps to share with others. So if you had something come up and you're feeling the imposter syndrome come out, let me know. We can be each other's accountability buddies or accountability buddies. And I love hearing from you, so it is never a bother. And I'd love to be here to support you in your creative endeavors. Also, we talked a lot today about TED Talks and how Madeleine humorously portrays them, which is so great. I want to remind you that I offer public speaking coaching and I use the principles of improv to help my clients feel more comfortable with speaking in front of others and dealing with impromptu issues that may come up. If you have an upcoming speech or presentation that you're nervous about, let's chat and see how you can feel more excited and ready for your big presentation. You can also reach out to me on social media if that's easier or more preferred for you. I'm on Instagram at Improvly Speaking, LinkedIn at Dana Gowan, or at improvislyspeaking.com. You can go there for more details. I want to thank you today for joining us in this awesome discussion about creativity and defining what success means to you and enjoying the slays and getting through the flops. I love all those terms. I learned so much today. I had a blast. Hope you did too. Thanks again for listening and supporting Improvly Speaking. Talk to you next time.